When you let your mind still and stop thinking about the thing you think you need to think about, that's when your creativity elevates. That's when your ability to innovate elevates. So if you don't allow yourself to do that, but if you do that on purpose, go, listen, you know what, I'm going out for a walk, or I'm going to sit here with with my cup, or I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, but I'm doing it on purpose. This isn't me just being lazy or stepping out of time or even thinking about self-care. This is me actively being at my best. Think about times when maybe you're moving from one Zoom meeting into another or from one activity into another. There's always a transition. And in that transition, use 60 seconds. Like 1 minute hacks do work. 60 seconds to take 6 slow breaths. 60 seconds to go step outside and get sunlight into the back of your eyes. 60 seconds to go and do a power pose. 60 seconds to do 10 squats. We can all do that, but we don't.
No.
But you will after listening to this.
Yeah.
I'm Shreya Parekh, and you're listening to Empower Her, the podcast for busy women aged 35 and beyond. If you're feeling stuck and unfulfilled with your health and wealth, get ready to be empowered to take action. My guests and I will be providing you with knowledge, resources, and ideas to help you broaden your perspectives, learn more about yourself, and define your path to live your absolute best life. Be sure to hit that follow button to stay tuned with Empower Her and check out the valuable free resources available on the website to support your journey. Would you take action if you could become 10 years younger in 10 weeks and have the potential to live a 1,000,000-hour life with longevity, impact, vitality, and energy? Join Dr. Alka Patel and me as we delve into the huge topic of health and how to take the steps to take care of yourself, because it starts with you. Dr. Alka is known as the Health Activation Doctor and is leading a strategic self-care revolution. She is a lifestyle medicine physician, longevity expert, author, podcaster, TEDx speaker, and multi-award-winning speaker. Her biological age is over 30 years younger, and yours can be too. Join us as we unlock the power of data-driven lifestyle optimization and biohacks.
Alka, welcome to the Empower Her podcast. It's fantastic to have you on. I'm super excited to talk about all these wonderful things that I want to ask you. Could you first introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your journey from what you were doing to what you're doing now? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I always find that a bit of a trick question, actually. It's like, introduce yourself and who are you and what do you do and what do you stand for and where do you start with that? It's easy to start with sort of roles and titles and job roles that people are kind of more familiar with. So I've always had sort of quite a traditional route. I think the sort of whole education, university, family, home, car, holidays, all of that. So went to medical school, trained as a doctor, became a GP partner, and very much started off my career as a very conventional GP. So most people are familiar with that sort of style, 10-minute appointments, in and out. But I started recognizing it as what I now call McDonald's style medicine.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Really great way to put it.
So a little bit like a drive-through, sort of come in, grab your pills, go out again, come back in. Oh, what's the bog off offer this week? Buy one, get one free. You can have double the amount of pills, and off you go. And I really started thinking about, is that why I went to medical school? This whole thing about, why do you want to be a doctor? And I want to help people. And like, it's so true. But the way I was doing that started to feel incongruent with sort of my values and how I wanted to just that vision of health for people, because really I sort of felt like we're in a sick care system. Healthcare isn't sick care. There's people who are sick that want to get back to health. But what is health? And so I kind of went on a bit of a journey of discovery. And I think, like most people, and I've seen this in my practice a lot, is that most people don't make shifts unless there's pain that comes before that.
Right.
So when you look at how people's behavior changes or how people's careers change or how people's lifestyles change, there's always some huge pain that comes before that sort of moment, that catalyst, that insight that we get. And I had a few of those. And unfortunately, I went through a period of burnout. And it's a common word. We use it a lot, like what even is burnout? And I didn't know what to call it then because for me, burnout felt like a bit of a word I didn't want to be associated with. It's sort of like you failed and you're breakable and not good enough. And going through my career and sort of life, I'd always set my standards really high to be the best doctor and the best mom and the best wife and the best daughter. And suddenly I found myself in hospital. It was June 2012. And an ordinary day, but I'd gone to work with a fever, but just pushed through. It's just a fever. I can fight this. I can get through. I've got prescriptions to sign and patients to see and a heaving waiting room. I'm not letting anybody down. Pushed through, got home, got into bed, and then never got back to my bed again at home for the next 4 weeks.
Wow.
And didn't get back to my consulting room for the next 4 months.
Wow. Okay.
And that was because this fever just hit, and I had no resilience. When you haven't got a fight, and so the fever hit. It sort of shut down my liver, shut down my kidneys, and you know how people talk about near-death experiences, and you never quite believe them when they say things like, "I saw the light," and it's like, "Yeah, sure," but I did, and I still remember it very distinctly, running towards this light because I just didn't have any energy to stay alive. I had so much to be alive for. I had 3 young children and yet didn't have that fight in me and was ready to just let it go. And then as I was running, and this might sound really strange to people listening, I appreciate that it's not a common experience, but there were 3 shadows that appeared in front of this light that I was running towards, and that realization, those the shadows of my children. And of course, here I am back, recovered. But it was that experience was one of a few, but that was the one that really led me to think about, how am I taking care of myself? What's important to me? And I recognize, and I think a lot of women listening may well resonate with this as well, because we are busy women who set ourselves standards to be exceptional, who have this attitude of, I can do it all, I don't need help, and I don't even want to ask for help or accept any help. And then that realization of, I didn't take any care of myself. Things like eating, sleeping, moving, you don't do any of that. And I hadn't done any of that. And my recovery, I realized, didn't lie at the end of pills and potions and knives. I mean, I was cut open in an attempt to find out what was wrong with me. I've got the scars of burnout on me as well. But my recovery didn't lie there. My recovery lied in being around people that I loved, listening to the chatter of my children, feeling the wind in my hair, sleeping, being nourished, moving, and all of those sort of lifestyle changes were the thing that I realized was missing in mainstream medicine. And so I made a big shift to think about, how do I bring that into people's lives? How do I make healthcare about health? How do I make healthcare about self-care in a very, very meaningful way as well?
Wow, what a journey, really. And you're right. Often, especially with women, there's that pivotal moment when you then start thinking about self-care. It's not from the beginning. It just starts at a point when you've had that breakdown, whether it's a mental breakdown or a physical breakdown or the burnout, however you want to call it.
Sure.
And then we start thinking, actually, I need to think about taking care of myself and how that looks. So tell me a little bit about what you've done to do that and what you're doing now.
So another little piece of the story then, I guess, is when you're trying to sort of discover what's another way, what's a better way, what's a different way. Sometimes you just don't know. You just know that plan A doesn't feel right, and so we need a plan B. So I got on a plane and I went off to India. Now, I'd never traveled on my own before. I always traveled with family. I went to a part of India where I didn't even speak the language, and I went to look after people at the end of their life, so sort of palliative care.
Oh, okay.
And I'd never really volunteered before either, so these are all kind of very new experiences for me, but just had a calling. Sometimes you just have this pull that really connects with you. And when I was there, I met a man who was 106 years old.
Wow, okay.
And just holding his hand.
Yeah.
And really kind of sensing, it is possible, that centenarian life, living beyond kind of what is thought to be typical life expectancy. So your life expectancy is a statistic. It's the expectation at any age of what age humans are expected to live. And it's something like, I think the last time I looked was sort of 85 for women and 83 for men, but don't quote me on that. And here I was holding hands with a 106-year-old who was happy, healthy in the sense that he was, cognitively thinking, able to have a conversation, moving, agile, feeding himself, talking about his own, life and lifestyle, and just thought this is what needs to happen. People need to have that opportunity to be able to live the longest life possible, because you get one chance, right? Why not make it the longest chance that you have, the happiest, healthiest version of yourself? So that's what I came back bringing, this sense of longevity. Like, what is possible as human beings? What is our potential to live? And with that model of self-care, but attached with a strategy, because I think self-care also gets a little bit of a bad reputation in terms of, it's not all bubble baths and nails. Although I have to say, quite like doing these as well. Right? but it's not all that at all. And the strategy behind it is, how do you kind of tap into your health? And what I really believe is that, like, right now is just the most incredible time to be alive. Like, if you think about it, we've got so much that we can now access that we couldn't, even a decade, 20 years, 30 years ago. We've unraveled the whole human genome, so all of our genes. And now we can measure them, and I can know exactly what my genetic profile is. I know exactly how I'm made. So if you know how you're made, why not utilize that information to then optimize your function? And so I do a lot of kind of testing, but very, very specific, data-driven testing, but also tapping into, I like to call it blending innate intuition with transformative technology. So again, well, what does that mean? Well, I think as humans, we've got intuition. We've got a real sense of just knowing. I mean, to eat well.
Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it's just, I think it's innate. I think, just part of human biology is it is just innate, that sort of level of self-awareness and self-consciousness and the signals, because our bodies are designed, that's just human design. We're designed to kind of have signals coming to us all the time. The trouble is, the world is now so much more noisy. So we don't tune into those signals.
Right.
That sort of the ache in the back, or the bit of the heartburn, or waking up feeling more tired or less energetic. You're like, it's okay, I'll just push through and ignore it. And when you ignore those signals, eventually they just come at you with a big loud bang. And there's the heart attack, and there's the diabetes, and there's the Alzheimer's. But those signals are always there. That intuition that we've got to say, I do need to tune in. I need to move differently, eat differently, connect differently. And we don't do it because we're busy women. Right? We've got other competing priorities, whether that's career and this idea of sort of success and what we want that to look like, financial success, and this whole idea of freedom, or whether it's raising family. And I remember a time like I had 3 children under the age of 5. Those were crazy years, like really, really crazy. And what did I sacrifice in the process? Sleep. I'm sure like loads of women will resonate that we don't sleep because there's not enough time in the day to do anything. So why not sacrifice sleep and just have more hours? But the impact of that, you might not feel it now. In a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, it's there. But I think, again, the other trouble is that we live in a very now society. So that instant gratification that we want, and that instant impact, if it's going to hit me now, otherwise it doesn't exist. If it's going to make me grateful, if it's going to give me a bounce, if it's going to give me my dopamine hit, give it to me now. Otherwise, I don't want to think about it later. And I think that's a real issue, is that now society that we're in. And I love it. Like, I love dopamine hits. I love doing things that give us that. Of course, we need that sort of, hedonic happiness, but that all that kind of eudaimonic, which is kind of that longer lasting success and fulfillment and contentment, that we need to allow the passage of time for.
So, I mean, in terms of you've talked about aging and self-care and things like that. How do you think about all this? You've got to take some time out for yourself. And busy women, we want to be perfect and do everything. And I still haven't quite figured out, why do we want to do everything? Some of us are lucky to have partners that we can, or people we can delegate to, but we don't. I know I'm a victim of that myself. I don't delegate as much as I should. I just get it done because it's quicker, it's easier. And that's one question. I mean, I'm not saying you can, we can't speak for all women, but a lot of women I know, we just do it and we take on that burden, we take on all of that. And then when we're taking on all of that, how do we even think about ourselves and take that time out to think, actually, I've had a niggle here or here for about 3 months now, or a few weeks. I need to think about what I'm going to do about that. What's the solution?
So I think your first question was sort of the why and unraveling the why. And I'm not sure we're going to solve the mysteries of life on this in this conversation, but there is definitely something there around. And I go back to biology, that whole sort of male-female aspect of our nature, intertwined within us as women is a feminine energy and a masculine energy, and we can call it energy. And I don't mean to be ethereal, because there's also specific biology and hormones and etc. attached to that. But there's a very nurturing element to being a woman. This idea of being able to take care. And we feel it, we have this kind of real, and again, I think that's just innate. That's just biology, that oxytocin, our love hormones, that need for connection, that need for belonging, all of that is very powerful in us. And that's a big drive for us to want to take care. And so when you ask, why do we do it all? Why do we say we can do it all? Well, some of it comes from a very nurturing angle, but some of it also comes from a very alpha angle. Right, that kind of we call it testosterone, call it the alpha female, that drive to be capable, and a lot of that is also about I want to be seen, to be valued, and to be valuable. So when you really kind of zone into what are your human drivers, and I talk about a lot of this in my courses and work that I do with my clients, but like really tapping into what drives you, what really motivates you. And I think a lot of women are afraid to talk about this idea of significance or recognition. And for me, that is quite an important driver. Not because I want to go, hey, look at me, right? It's not that. It's back to what I just said, which is about this sense of value, being valued, and being valuable. And when you combine all of those things, value, valued, and valuable together, I think that's a huge driving force for women in particular. And that need to just have the recognition that, I matter. But sometimes the way we want to demonstrate that you matter is by going, look at me, I'm doing it all. I've got it all. I have it all. Yeah. And then something gives, i.e. your sleep gives, or your food gives. You end up, you pick up the kids' end of their food and nibble on that, or you snack away when you don't want to. And that's why I now like to really bring in some of the technology into my work as well. So, and using tech, using devices, like I put sugar sensors on so many women, because it tells you, it gives you information. It put wellness rings on so many people as well, because again, it gives you numbers about how you're sleeping, how you're moving, what your heart is doing. And then all those numbers we can use to sort of nudge us. When you can take the kind of qualitative soft things and turn them into sort of the quantitative, it makes everything so much more tangible. So it's again that kind of blend of the intuition and the technology. Why not utilize all of that? I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah. Somewhere. Okay. If I did.
Yeah,
why?
Probably somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So you talk about becoming 10 years younger in 10 weeks. I'm really intrigued by that. What do you mean by that? Because for me, when someone says that, I'm like, what do you mean? How would I even do that?
Yeah. No, I love this. So when you look at longevity, how long you're going to live, your lifespan, your health span, which is how long you're going to live with healthy years. And when we look at traditionally how we've looked at age, do you remember as a kid that playground riddle or that playground joke, what goes up but never comes down?
Yeah.
And the only answer, like you think of an umbrella or you think of a ball, and you go, no, it's your age. So that used to be true, could only go in one direction. But now, as we're unraveling the science, what we know is your age is bidirectional. So we've traditionally thought of your chronological age, right, which is, stamp on your passport, stamp on your birth certificate. This is the number of sunsets and sunrises that you've seen since you were born. And look, we can't change that. That's chronology. We do not have the power to change how the earth moves around the sun. We can't do that. Yeah. So that's chronology. But there's also biology. And when you look at your biological age, well, this is kind of very internal. This is your cells. This is your chromosomes. This is your physiology, your immune system. That's all of that, hormones, your metabolism, and all of that is really driving the aging processes. So how that is all working. So we've discovered now there is kind of 12 hallmarks of aging, and I won't go into all of those. But what those hallmarks give us is an opportunity to interject, to change and reverse aging, because you can now measure biological age. So I measure biological age, as an actual number. Back to
How do you do that?
Back to numbers. So it's a very simple finger prick test.
Oh, okay.
So it's a blood test that you can now have. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks to get the result back. So it's not one of those simple GP blood tests at all. But what it's looking at in the lab is really looking at your immune system, and more specifically sort of inflammation. So when you look at one of the key hallmarks of aging, we know that inflammation in your body drives this lovely word that I love, which is called inflammaging.
Okay.
Right? I didn't make that up. Well, maybe I did make it up. Inflammation and aging go together. So when we get to the root of why do we age, it's not because of time. It's because of what's going on in our inflammatory processes in our body. And now we can measure all of that. And what is amazing is when you look at your lifestyle, 70 to 80% of what you do can then start to impact on your genetic expression, which then changes your age. So you can reverse aging through lifestyle optimization. So really thinking about what in your lifestyle needs to be changed in order to reverse aging. We can talk about some of those things. And this whole kind of new realm of biohacking as well, which I love as well. So it's really about getting in control of your health, feeling that you've got, I talk about getting to the core of, control, ownership and responsibility through exploration. I love my acronyms. You'll get used to them, right? But now we're able to do that. So can you reverse aging? Yes. Goes 2 ways. And at any point there's a choice. And that choice is through your lifestyle. Can you become 10 years younger in 10 weeks? God, yeah, absolutely. So I've got many, many, many clients that I look after that have done this. But if I just take myself as that kind of my own case study as such. So my biological age is 30 years younger.
Wow.
Than my chronological age.
What exactly are you doing?
What exactly am I doing? But the even more fascinating thing with that is that I measure it year after year.
Okay.
And in 1 year, even though I've aged a year chronologically, my biological age hasn't moved at all. So when you think of this idea of immortality, I know this is, again, very ethereal, but if you didn't age a year in a single year, that's your path to kind of living forever. And I'm not saying we're going to live forever. Sort of my goal and what I believe is absolutely possible is what I call the 1,000,000-hour life.
Okay.
And you're probably going, what's 1,000,000 hours? And none of us have got our calculators here.
Yeah. You know what? I'm really intrigued by this because I was reading a book written by Stephen Bartlett, and I never thought about life like this, to be honest. And he wrote about, how the average age, according to some stats in America, is about 77 years old, and calculate how many days you have left on this earth from the age you are now, or how many hours even. So what are you going to do with those hours? How are you going to live those hours?
Yeah.
Are you going to live them wasting your life away doing the things that don't serve you, or doing I don't know, things that are bad for your health? Or are you going to start really thinking about doing the things you really want to do?
Yeah.
But to your point,
Exactly.
what you were saying.
And if I gave you £1 million, I'm pretty sure you'd want to get, bang for your buck. Like you wouldn't just want to go, hey, throw those to the wind.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you 1,000,000 hours.
Yeah.
What are you doing with those? And, even if I gave you health today and said, listen, here it is, right, here you go, have it. The chances are that you're going to just lose it.
Yeah.
So actually, how do you take, again, ownership and control of that? And there's lots of ways of looking at that, like connecting time to aging is also kind of, when you think about how many summers have I got left?
Yeah.
And you think a bit like that. Honestly, this is tearjerker stuff, right? It really kind of, when I look at my children, for example, who are now adults as such, it's like, wow, how many summers have we got together left?
Yeah.
And that makes it more poignant. It's
it
like,
does.
why do you want life to end? No matter, and honestly, I know people have hardships and there's toughness, and that is called life. But really, your perspective, your lens on it shapes what you attract, what comes to you, your perspective, what you do next. Your thoughts become your actions. We know this. We know this from kind of even from science. It's a great bit of study that was done on affirmations and values and people making declarations. And people who make declarations and affirmations take on much more positive health behaviors than people who don't. So if you wanted to exercise more and you started thinking, I am energetic, I'm an exerciser, I am fit, I am healthy, and you take on that persona and identity, it's back to your identity and values, you are going to make different choices than if you don't have that, take on that identity or really feel that identity. So affirmations and declarations are super, super powerful. But yeah, I think it's a really important way to just look at it. When I ask people, what age do you want to get to? Right? Most people say, well, you've just gone, 70, 80. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
What about 100, 110, 114, by the way? A million hours is 114.
A million hours is 114.
It's 114.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and we know that's possible because human potential has shown us that there have been people that have already been alive for 120 years. So we know it's possible. And now we've got, as I said, intuition and technology on our side. That time is here. So we've got to start embracing.
I mean, I've always said I want to live till... I've never put a number on it so much, but I want to live past 100. And my husband always says, even my mum actually, why do you want to live that long? What's the point? And you're going to be... And I said, no, I want to live as long as I can. I want to see what's going on. I want to see and experience my children and everything. But as long as I'm fit and healthy, I don't want to live that long in an unhealthy and horrible way where, I'm in a state where I can't do anything and my life's not worth living, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And there's a slight difference between men and women with that as well. As again, when you look at some of the statistics, women do live longer than men.
Yeah.
But that last decade of a woman's life is not healthy. So women get more Alzheimer's. They've got a higher number of women living with dementia than there are men. I think the statistics are huge. I think in Australia, 2/3 of people who have Alzheimer's are women.
Okay.
And of course, here in the UK, it's the highest cause of death amongst women. So
do they know why that is? Why there's a difference between the men and the women?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of contributions to that. Again, if I go back to something like sleep and we look at kind of sleep data, and again, it's getting to the core. We can look at, but really right at the core. If you look at your lifestyle, women who have children, and of course you sacrifice sleep. And I say sacrifice lightly, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It's that nurture in you that wants to just be there and be present for your babies. But sleep is sacrifice. And when you do that, there's this whole washout that happens in your brain when you sleep. We've got this whole system, the G-lymphatic system. So it's literally like a jet wash. And when you don't have the opportunity to do that because you don't sleep long enough, those protein fibers, they start to sort of build up. And over years, of course, they're going to predispose you. And Alzheimer's now, we now talk about it as sort of type 3 diabetes as well. So the sort of whole impact of sugar and hormones is playing a part as well in all of that as well. So there are, definite kind of gender differences in health. Even things like cancer. I think there's a big study that was done. It looked at about 18,000 people who'd had cancer diagnoses and looked at the diagnosis interval. So that's the interval between having symptoms and presenting with symptoms and getting your diagnosis of cancer. And guess what? The delay for women, far greater than for men.
Wow, okay.
And again, you think, well, why is that? And is it something about women not being heard? Women not being seen. We can hypothesize what that is. Is it that women's symptoms are not taken as seriously when you go to your doctor or to your healthcare care professional? And so these are things that we do need to sort of think a lot more about. Women present in different ways. There's definitely not enough funding going into research at all for women's health. Like huge discrepancies. So there's a lot there to unpack. I don't think there's a sort of simple answer to the why.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a really big issue with this whole cancer thing because, when I was growing up, it was something like 1 in 6 or whatever get cancer. And I don't know whether that's women or men. It was just this figure that I read. And now it's 1 in 2.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
There's so much research, money being compared to many years ago being pumped into cancer, research in cancer and things like that. Is it because it's getting picked up more, or is it because our environment and what we're eating and things like that? And I have my own theory. I mean, it's there's no evidence or anything to do with it. I've no idea, but I just think a lot of it must be to do with what you're eating and your environment and pollution and this and that, whatever's going on in the world.
Yeah. No, and that's not guessing. There is science and data and all of that to absolutely back that up. The trouble is a lot of the money goes into the drugs. So it's not so much that why we get cancer in the first place. It's more the what do we do when we get it. And so huge amount of money and research being pumped into that, which has its place, but it's also diverting it from getting to the root cause. And again, when you go back to cancer is a diagnosis of lifestyle. It's a lifestyle disease, and this is not for anyone who's listening who has cancer at all feeling kind of self-blame or any judgment around it at all, because our environment shapes that. The adverts on buses shape our choices, how the supermarkets and their arts. This is not that at all. But when you really think about it, those lifestyle decisions, choices that we make have a huge impact. From what deodorant are you putting on? Like, why is there a lot more breast cancer? What are you putting so close to your lymph glands? What's going on with our skin, for example? And exactly that kind of nourishment and nutrition that we're getting. The soil's not even the same as it was 100 years ago. So what are we actually putting in? And every fork is a choice. Every fork is a choice. If you're choosing to, and I don't want to get into the meat and plant debate, but you've got to have that intentionality about how you eat, when you eat, why you eat, how you exercise, why you exercise, when you exercise, how you sleep, when you sleep, why you sleep. All of that really we have to kind of make much more intentional choices. And now we do have choices. We are consumers. We do live in a very consumerist world. So we, whatever products we're consuming and purchasing and putting on our skin, putting clothes onto our bodies, like really kind of think about that and think about what your other choices might be. I do sort of toxin testing, allergy testing, gut testing, looking at kind of your ecosystem and the diversity of your gut, and really then pinpointing again, it comes back to a lot of it is environmental. But I don't want anyone to think that they haven't got advocacy over that and choice over that. Is like focus on the things you can change, not the things that you can't change. That's important.
So what would your advice be to women? Not all women have the opportunity to pay for all these tests and things to kind of become 10 years younger, as it were, following that process of testing, right? What advice would you give to women that don't have the funds to do that, but really want to change their life with their health and well-being?
No, great question. And ultimately, lifestyle choices don't have to come with a pound sign in front of them. Those are accessible to all of us. So I've got a little formula that I call another acronym, the Lifestyle First formula, which is really looking at the key elements in your lifestyle. LIFESTY, they all stand for something. So if you look at even something like L, which is life purpose, purpose in life, having a reason to get up out of bed. The research tells us you live 7.5 years longer. 7.5 years longer if you live a life of purpose. Right. Now, that doesn't mean you've got to have a Mother Teresa statue in the middle of Trafalgar Square or anything like that. Actually, I don't think she's got a statue there. But it doesn't mean we have to do these like huge things. But really, and me and my husband talk about this all the time, is don't put your feet out of your bed unless there's a smile on your face and you know why. And I always spend kind of, I'm an advocate for not pressing the snooze button, but really just using those first few moments when you wake up. And I always ask myself kind of 6 little questions. I'm going to give you another acronym. Oh, my goodness. Right. And I call it, write these down. If people are listening, they're going to write this stuff down. But I call it turning your dreams to success. Okay. So the first question I ask myself when my eyes open is what difference, the D is difference. What difference do I want to make in the world today? And that might be as small as, I'm going to give my daughter lots of compliments today, to that next patient I'm saying I'm going to be fully present for them. Or I'm going to, wave at the neighbours as they go off to work. Like, it's the small things that matter, but really thinking about what difference do I want to make to someone else today? That's really important. Then it's the R is how ready am I? preparedness really is important. Being prepared for how ready am I for the day ahead of me today? The easy energy. And again, I think this is within our gift. So it doesn't need any money, doesn't need any finances behind it to say, what energy am I radiating into the world today? So we could be sat here today and I'd be like, oh God, yeah, boring conversation. And it would be a really boring conversation, but I haven't come with that.
Yeah.
This morning was the energy I want to radiate today is just one of curiosity and fun and enjoyment. And I am really enjoying this conversation with you. And you get to choose that, right? And we all know, when we're in meetings or something and someone enters the room and like the whole energy drains in the room, like, we can feel that from each other. So what you put out, you do get back. So just really kind of thinking about that. Where are we? DREA is the affirmation. And we talked a little bit about that. But just that, that I am statement for yourself. What's that value that you want to showcase today? I'm kind. I'm calm. I'm available. Just choose. And then I do this thing called flavor and savor, which is like sprinkle that value into your day. And then when you go to bed at night, because the one thing that keeps people awake is worry, right? A lot of people don't sleep because they're worrying about the things they haven't done or should done or could have done. Instead, savor those moments that you sprinkle that value into your day. What did I do today that was kind? Yeah. That's a good day. And that's a definition of success, right? And then the M we've talked a little bit around already is what's motivating me today. So again, what is driving you, that driving force? Carry that with you. And the last one you'll like, the S, which is self-care. What am I doing today to take care of myself today? And if you get into the habit of just asking yourself these questions every morning, because you're asking the questions, you start thinking about what am I going to be doing to take care of myself. So it doesn't become self-care, it doesn't drop to the bottom of your to-do list. It's up there because you kind of want to validate that for yourself every day. So that's just a simple thing in terms of, just waking up with purpose. You're automatically doing that if you can answer those simple questions, plant your feet on the ground, put the smile on your face, and then carry on with your day. So that's just kind of, simple things. The other thing I talk a lot about is about light and getting outside. And again, if you talk back to kind of conversation around sleep and our circadian rhythms, we're all we are governed by the sunlight. But most of us are indoors. Like even this beautiful bright light in here is nothing compared to outdoors, even on a cloudy day. This is probably about 100, 200, maybe 500 lux. You go outside, you're immediately getting 5,000, 10,000. A sunny day, you're getting 100,000.
Oh, okay.
And we need that differential in lux between night and day for all of our kind of hormones to be regulated. Things like melatonin that drives your sleep and cortisol, which is your sort of stress activator. So I always say, just again, this is free. Step outside, even if it's for 60 seconds, just go and do that. And then when you're indoors in the evening, like just avoid all the super, super bright lights. So your brain kind of gets that differential. So it really kind of, again, is able to give you that more rhythmical oscillation. And the third thing, which is freely accessible, is your breath. Breathing. Now, again, it's like, well, I know how to breathe, but breathing actually is connected to your neurology.
As you said that, I took a deep breath. Thinking, am I breathing properly?
But you can control your breathing. And again, back to sort of some of the research which showed that if you breathe for less than 6 breaths a minute, so if you take in less than 6 breaths a minute, you automatically switch off your sympathetic nervous system, which is your stress nervous system, S for stress and S for sympathetic, and you turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. So I think of it as parasympathetic and P for peace. And you start to kind of change your regulation. And if you think about it, your breath is with you all the time at any moment. No one even needs to know you're doing it. You don't have to pause for anything. You can just slow down your breathing. And it's very easy to do if you just think about taking in for 4, count to 4, and out for a count of 6. And you do that just for 60 seconds. That's all it takes. And again, I know we're busy, right? That's when we've got things to do, places to be, people to meet. But it takes 60 seconds. We can all find 60 seconds. And that's reminding me of something you were talking about sort of earlier, which is we don't have time to even think of ourselves. And how do we even know how to sort of, what our values are and what's important to us and how to find purpose and all of that. And I had a little kind of phase of that as well. And I turned 50 a couple of years ago. And you know what it's like when you change a decade? Everyone's like, where's the party? Where's the party? I was like, nope. no party. And I had another calling and I just needed to go be by myself. So this kind of idea of solitude, again, that's available and accessible to you for free, is spending time alone with yourself. And a lot of women are really afraid to do that because it's like, I don't want to hear my own chatter, all that critical, negative self-talk, the I'm not good enough, the I can't do that, I don't want to hear it. But I went off to the mountains of Spain on my own. Again, see you later, kids. And, you know, and off I went. And when I got there, I kind of zipped into silence. Not a sound came out of my mouth. Not for 7 seconds, not for 7 minutes, but for 7 days. And I do a lot of professional public speaking on stages all the time. So to get a speaker to just, you know, zip up, not easy. But I didn't speak to anyone for 7 days. And
did you speak to yourself?
100%. Oh my God, 100%.
I mean, even out loud.
Oh no, no sounds. No, they were all. It was no sounds. No sounds. So the first few days, I couldn't still my body. Because there is this kind of, you know, physical, emotional connect. And so I just needed to keep moving. I went off and climbed mountains and just kind of got that out of my system. And then the next few days I was able to kind of sit, but my brain was not switching off. And I think we're very much like snow globes. You know, when you kind of, you shake and then it all just kind of settles in. And then it takes one little thing to come in and the whole thing gets shaken up again, right? So I just kind of needed that to settle. And then I was able to answer questions like, what is love? What is happiness? What is joy? What is success? Why am I here? What if I was the only one on this planet? What would I be doing freely? And you can't answer those questions for yourself until you allow yourself some stillness. Honestly, I fell in love with an orange. I can't even tell you. I just had this orange in my hand going, oh my gosh, someone sowed this seed in some soil. Somebody else watered it. Someone plucked this fruit from the tree and now it's in my hands to nourish me. And if you can go around and look at the world with that level of awe and that level of kind of gratitude, honestly, I wake up every single day now and I say to myself, I love my life. And that I do say out loud. Honestly, I walk around and I say, I love my life. I love my life. And that's really what when you say, what do you do? That very first question is, tell us about what you do. Well, what I do is help people love their life. And if you love your life, you're going to want to live a really, really long one. So that 1,000,000 hours becomes something that you absolutely want. And it starts from that. It starts from, what do I love about my life? And why do I want to live a very, very long life? And I know I need my health in order to be able to do that and have those successes that I can define for myself. So I would encourage women listening, like, I don't think you need to go and sit under a tree for 7 days. And maybe you can't even find 7 hours or 7 minutes, but can you find 7 seconds in your day just to still? And that is sometimes not even easy, right? But
I was just about to say that. I think, you know what the problem is? A lot of women know what they want and need sometimes, and, you know, what they aspire to have in terms of, you know, I really just want, you know, even I find myself saying, I just want 10 minutes on my own without my kids saying mum. And I can't even go to the toilet in peace, you know, and I yearn for just, you know, 10 minutes of nothing. And then, you know, we just get wrapped up in everyday life. You know, whether you go to work, whether it's the kids, if you don't have kids, you might be have caring responsibilities, whatever, however that transpires, you know, it's like your brain is constantly engaged with something that, although you know doing this thing is good for you, you just never do it.
Right. So I think there's a difference here between time management, because you're trying to manage your day, manage your time, and manage the people around you and all those responsibilities. And there's a difference between time management and energy management. And I think if we focus more on energy management, we'd be able to kind of optimize what we do in our time better.
Okay.
Because most women are exhausted.
Yeah.
Right. And this sense that, oh God, I'm so tired all the time becomes your normal. And it can't be, because then you can't give to those people that need you, whether it's your children or your parents or friends, family colleagues, that sense of kind of, again, give. You know, we've got that very innately in us, this need to give to the world. We all have that, every single human being, but it gets clouded. So it's again about prioritization. If you prioritize your own energy, you know you're going to be able to give more. So you do it from a place of giving. Like, the reason I'm taking time out right now to go for a 5-minute walk is because then I'm here for you even more. And it's not a I'm not being lazy sitting down and just having a warm cup of tea wrapped around my hands with my eyes closed. This is purposeful. And also what you do when you do that is you unlock different parts of your brain.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about you, but do you ever get shower thoughts?
Yeah.
Right.
I get thoughts all the time. My brain just doesn't stop thinking, I think.
Like, your best ideas come when you're not thinking about them.
Yeah.
This is why authors kind of, go on walks and they get their ideas for their books. But it's that when you let your mind still and stop thinking about the thing you think you need to think about, that's when your creativity elevates. That's when your ability to innovate elevates. So if you don't allow yourself to do that, but if you do that on purpose, go, listen, you know what, I'm going out for a walk, or I'm going to sit here with with my cup, or I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, but I'm doing it on purpose. This isn't me just being lazy or stepping out of time or even thinking about self-care. This is me actively being at my best. And I think we just need to switch some of the language around that as well. And, I used to do that. I used to go and lock myself in the toilet to get 2 to 5 minutes, right? But actually, what would I do differently? I'd make that a declaration. I'd get kind of, people around me to understand that is, listen, I just need 5 minutes on the hour, every hour, and I'm going to go in off and, what I'm doing? I'm doing power pose, right? I'm just going to raise my hormone levels, let that testosterone flow down, and then I'm back and then I'm ready. And we do have, I think we have more time than we think. We have a lot of transition time. So if you think about kind of busy professional women, think about times when maybe you're moving from one Zoom meeting into another or from one activity into another. There's always a transition. And in that transition, use 60 seconds. Like 1-minute hacks do work. 60 seconds to take 6 slow breaths. 60 seconds to go step outside and get sunlight into the back of your eyes. 60 seconds to go and do a power pose. 60 seconds to do 10 squats. We can all do that, but we don't.
No.
But you will after listening to this.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have really changed the way I do things and think about things. But I'm just, I still do get into one of those ruts as well, where it's like, I don't take that time out to think, and I've just, and what you said about, oh, I'm really tired today, I just, don't have any energy. It's those words you use on yourself constantly, right? I'm tired. If you keep saying you're tired and you constantly, you always will be tired. I'm not saying, that obviously if you're tired, you need to rest. But if that narrative is constantly there, I'm assuming.
Well, maybe challenge that a little bit. If you're tired, do you need to rest? What sort of fatigue are you experiencing? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it because of boredom? Is it because you're not meeting your drivers and your values? Really think about, what is this tiredness? Simple things like posture changes can change your energy levels. If we're both sitting like this, relax, great. But what if we sat upright automatically? Like, honestly, just doing that right now makes a huge difference. So back to kind of that energy control. But look, definitely if you're listening and if you are feeling tired, 100%, please do go and see your GP or your doctors, because you do have to make sure there isn't something more going on. But if there isn't, this whole idea that I'm just tired all the time, absolutely not. You don't need to be that at all. It's food, it's movements, it's connection, it's sleep, it's all of that, and the reason I wanted to kind of challenge that is because energy creates energy. And so the very thing you need to do if you're feeling tired is actually spend energy, utilize energy, move, go and exercise, run up and down on the spot, right? Jog around the block. You will come back with more energy, not less. You will be less tired, not more tired. So I always call this kind of your minimal effective dose. What is the smallest thing that you can do that's going to give you that jump start? And sometimes, like I keep saying, it's 60 seconds, right? Just do that, but do this with consistency. So again, how do you form habits? How do our neuronal pathways really start to connect? They connect if we do things consistently, not if you do 3 hours at the weekend and nothing all week, right? It's just what is the stuff that you can do that really starts to make those connections for you. So, start slow, be consistent.
Yeah, I think we all need to really take a step back, even if it is, like you said, for that 60 seconds or 10 seconds and just think.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't need to think. You just need to
do.
it. Yeah.
But also, who are you around? You know, if you want to run, surround yourself by people who already run.
Yeah.
If you want to be energetic, surround yourself by energetic people.
Yeah.
If you want to be creative, surround yourself by creative people. And those are choices. And I know sometimes it can feel hard to kind of seek out that group, that those people that you connect with, but it is so important to do that. And vice versa, if you find that your inner circle of people are the ones that drain you, that you can't have those conversations with, that don't give you that next level of elevation, guess what? You have feet. Use those to change where you go and find the people that you need. And I think that's so important, you know, especially sort of as professional women, as mums, if there are mums listening as well, is really think about all those multiple roles and labels we have for ourselves. I mean, amidst all of that is one person, and that's you, with multiple facets and multiple faces. But really back to values is who are your people that you can really kind of connect with. And I think that's so important, is back to identity. Is, you know, if you like I said, if there's something that you're aspiring to be, go and hang around the people who are already doing that, because they pull you up, and vice versa. There are going to be other people that are going to want to aspire to you. So you get that opportunity to sort of lead as well. And I think the other thing we kind of miss out on is the fun side of life. Like sometimes it can just feel serious. And of course it is, because life is important. But, you know, that endless to-do list is never going to be fulfilling if you don't have fun while you're doing all the things that you want to do and need to do. So think about what brings you joy, what brings you laughter. And I don't want to look at, you know, medicine and laughter, and laughter is medicine. Well, it is 100%. There's lots of research about that. But what are you doing to have fun in your day? Like, this is fun. You know, this has definitely kind of elevated my energy for the day. But sometimes you put that at the bottom of the list because we do all the serious, important things first and not the fun things. So
I guess, it's looking at your task list and seeing how can you make those things fun and what can you do to make those things fun. And, you know, again, it doesn't have to involve spending money on it. You know, there's so many things out there that you can do for free.
100%. And look, like, there's lots of things that aren't that much fun. Like, no one likes filling in tax returns, and no one likes pulling out the bins. But when you think about this, there's a purpose behind this. You know, can you pull your bins out on a Thursday night humming a tune? I mean, I don't know. My husband pulls our bins out, so I can't answer that question. But you probably can. Like, you know, it's a chore, but there's a reason to do it. It's because I don't want maggots in my kitchen. Thank you very much. And so the same with the kind of, there's a lot of things that we do that we might not automatically think of, hey, this is fun and jolly. But again, attach your values piece to it. And most of what you do, you can elevate that level of enjoyment and joy from it as well.
I just want to quickly touch upon biohacking. What is that exactly, and how would you go about doing that, if that's even how to put it, to be honest?
Okay, so it is a bit of a buzzword, and it's really thinking about, well, what does it mean? Now, a lot of people don't like the word hacking because it's kind of got connotations with things you shouldn't be doing, but I love the word, and I touched on it a little bit already, because what are we hacking when we talk about biohacking? Well, your hacking is really trying to get right to the core, right, to get to the control center. So that's what you're doing when you're hacking. You're getting to your very control center. You know, whether that's the control center of your brain, or control center for your emotions, or control center of your hormones, or your physiology, or your neurology, all the things that you want to then be able to take control over, because that's what hacking is. And what are you hacking is your biology. And so once you're able to tune into your biology and take control over it, which you can, we're not just a vessel that just works on its own. You know, taking care of this vessel is one of our biggest jobs. And biohacking gives you an intel into doing that. Now, interestingly, a lot of what we've already been talking about is biohacking. Right? It's actually me stepping out into sunlight on purpose is me hacking into my biology. Me taking some deep breaths is me hacking into my biology. And then, of course, you've got a whole kind of spectrum of that, from the things that you kind of, might have seen, like injecting plasma and having IV drips and putting, electrodes on your head. And all of that is also very, very accessible to changing your genes and gene therapy and all this stuff that is available and might not feel like it's something you want to tap into. But things like going into a sauna, going into a cold plunge, having a cold shower every morning, having some red light on your face, taking, breathing, we've already talked. This is all hacking your biology. But the most important thing, and which is why I've developed what I call the health hacking code, which is using data and devices to make decisions with precision. The most important thing is to track all of this for yourself, not to blindly, look on Instagram. Oh, look, he's jumping into a cold plunge. I better do that every day. No, really tap into your own breathing rate, your own heart rate, something called your heart rate variability. Capture the data on yourself, understand your own genetics, your own metabolism, how you make energy, what nutrients you eat, how your food affects you. Because you'll eat a potato, and I'll eat a potato, and when I put a sugar sensor on both our arms, it'll be totally different. But the people on social media be like, no carbs ever, don't touch carbs. And hang on a minute, it's the fuel. We need glucose, but how we're going to tame it in a way that's personal for you and personal for me. So that's the sort of personalized medicine part of it. So biohacking is very simply taking control of your biology. And I think it's something that we all should be doing. I remember when I first started out as a GP, one of the things I loved was patient coming into my consulting room, landing all of their issues onto my lap, this kind of hot potato of symptoms and things going wrong. And then I would go and figure it all out and hand you back your health. And that is not how the system should work, because that is you becoming dependent on me, the doctor. And what you want to do is have that sense of responsibility, that sense of curiosity, that sense of real ownership of your health, because it absolutely needs to belong to you. You've got to be in that driving seat. And that's where biohacking, health hacking, lifestyle optimization, data devices, tracking, all of this puts you into that driving seat. And that's just taken me back to the story that I shared with you earlier about my burnout. Because one of the reasons it took me 4 months to get back to work was I didn't want to get back into the driving seat of my life. Because, and I mean this metaphorically and actually, because once I got back into my car and into the actual driving seat of that car, it meant I could drop the kids to school, pick them up, go to the laundry, go to the supermarket, be a doctor all day long and do everything, just take on all those roles again. And that risk of getting overwhelmed by all of that. And so psychologically, I had such a huge block about getting back into that driving seat. But metaphorically, that's where we need to be. We need to be the ones driving our own vehicles. You get to choose who the passengers in your car, who's right next to you, what's that voice in your ear, who's in the back seat, where's this journey going, where are you driving towards, what is that destination, whether that's in years in your life or health, whatever that is, where is this journey going to, what does that successful life look like for you? And maybe I'll just leave you with one kind of last little story, was that I was in the Marrakesh earthquake last year.
Oh, okay.
So I was in Marrakesh, had gone to bed, and suddenly, when I say suddenly, my body just went whoop, bolt upright, woken by this sound.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I didn't know what that sound was at all. I thought it was thunder. I was waiting for the lightning, and then no lightning came, and the sound got louder and louder, and then the ground started moving. Everything was moving. The walls were moving. And at that moment, I realized it's an earthquake. This is it. And when the moment my brain said this is an earthquake, the second thing I said was, this is it. Because I felt at that moment that this was how I was going to die. And I scrambled for my phone and sent a text to my children to say, I love you. And that was it. And then I just waited with the noise and the movement. And the one recurring thought I kept on having was, I'm going to cry, making me go back there. I just kept thinking, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Because I wasn't ready. And I know mortality comes to us all. But what I really want, and I want for everybody, is when that moment arrives, you're ready. You can say, that was a great life.
Yeah.
Because you've taken ownership, because you've taken responsibility, and you're ready to let go. But if you're not ready and you're not ready now, and we don't know when that earthquake's coming, we don't know when that thing is coming, right?
No.
So we've got to be ever ready. So live that life now. Do whatever it takes for that to be a healthy, happy one, where you've got that contentment and you've got that fulfillment and you define your own sex. And it doesn't matter whether that success is financial or it's freedom or it's family. You get to define it because that's for you.
Yeah.
But be ready.
It's a great way to leave it. Definitely. I am. That's actually put a tear through my tears in my eyes as well. You know, I don't know. I'm actually taken aback by that, to be honest. what you've just said. Yeah. Look, that advice is spot on for sure. I think we all, you know, we don't know when. We don't know when it's coming, and if you're not. Should you even be saying, you know, are you going to be ready to leave? But you should be in a position to say, I'm ready, like you say, and feel like, you know what, I've enjoyed it. I've done the things that I want to, and I feel content and I'm ready. And are most people ready? That's the question, really. I'm not ready. I know that for sure. I'm not ready. And I don't think many people are ready. I really don't, because I don't think they're living and fulfilling what they really, really want to.
Yeah, no, 100%. And look, whilst we can't control Mother Nature and that level of the universe and life, what you can control, and I'm coming back to health here, is prioritize that. Yeah. Please don't be at the bottom of your to-do list. Please get yourself right up to the top because, you know, I know health sometimes doesn't feel like it's everything. But if you have everything, then without your health, it's going to feel like nothing.
Yeah.
So that would probably be my sort of lasting message to everybody is prioritize yourself.
Yeah.
Not from a selfish perspective, but because you matter and life matters, and it's not just about kind of people needing you, but this is like your chance, right? One life, go live it in your healthiest space, because we need all of that cognitive facilities that we've got, our emotional health, our ability to move our hands and feet, all of that. Like really treasure that about this like incredible vessel. Like it's the best piece of tech that you're ever going to discover.
Yeah. I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
We've got to cherish it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Alka, one final question. I'm a huge advocate for collaboration. What collaboration opportunities are you looking for, whether that's on a personal level or for your business right now?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I hadn't even thought about that question. I think in terms of collaboration, listen, there's lots of people that I can work alongside when I think of that kind of professionally. People who are, you know, in the health space, who are in the space, in the business space as well. When you think about, you know, careers and business success, if you're an executive, if you're an entrepreneur, think about what does that mean for you? How are you going to prioritize your health? What is it that you want for the people that are around you as well? So lots of kind of collaborative opportunities there. I do a lot of speaking on stages as well. So again, if anybody's listening and wants to sort of collaborate in that space, you know, very, very happy to do that as well. And I think, you know, just as you say, on that kind of personal level and back to that kind of belonging, if there's anybody who resonates with anything that we've talked about today, then I'm here, I'm available, I'm accessible. You can find me on the socials, find me on the website, but I always want to connect with people. I think that's just a fundamental part of being human is being able to connect and collaborate. Yeah,
absolutely. Alka, thank you so much for being on the Empower Her podcast. It's been fantastic to have you on.
Thank you. Loved it. We could keep going, couldn't we? But we won't.
I know. We could absolutely keep going.
Thanks for tuning in to Empower Her. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired and motivated to make a positive difference in your world. Please follow the podcast and share it with anyone who will find it helpful. Until next time, keep striving for positive change and greatness for all women.